The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. Loving baseball when we were 12 and innocent. And I've got a guy who's perfect for the 80s. When he was 12, he is author, philosopher, Snoopy guy. What more can I say about Ian Kahanowitz? How are you, my friend?
Ralph, it's always good to be back on the Comfortably Zoned Network with you. I missed you. Missed talking with you. I missed doing podcasts with you.
It's nice, Ian. We have a long history. You helped build the network. And if anybody is interested and they go to YouTube, Comfortably Zoned, Ian Kahanowitz, there is a bunch of stuff. You've interviewed authors on this network. You have shared stuff about your life that's priceless, and one of my favorite people in the whole world. So I hope this will give us a chance to relive happy memories with you when you were 12 and life was a little more innocent. You were innocent. You were a baseball fan. You were just getting to the intellectualism of the game at 12, and you understood a little bit about what it was about. Take it from there, Ian.
Well, again, Ralph, when I was 12, it was 1982. And like you, I grew up in New York City. And both the Yankees and the Mets that year were god-awful. The Yankees finished in 5th place. The Mets finished in 6th place. Again, the Yankees were in the World Series the year before. They lost to the Dodgers in 6. Prior to that, they had lost to Kansas City in the 1980 American League Championship game. And prior to that, in 1979, Thurman Munson died on this date, August 2nd, 1979. And don't forget, 3 years prior, the Yanks won the World Series 2 years in a row, and they lost to the Big Red Machine in 76. So for me, by the time I was 12, the Yankees were my world. And now I saw things coming apart in the Bronx Zoo. Milwaukee had become a powerhouse. Oakland had become a powerhouse. The Angels now had Reggie Jackson because the Yankees gave him up. They had Reggie Jackson. They had Rod Carew. They had Don Baylor. They had what was his name? Fred Lynn. They were a powerhouse that would meet the Red Sox, I believe, in the playoffs that year. But
if it weren't for Donnie Moore giving up that historic home run, they would have won that 80. I think it was 86 when that happened. Wow. These are the good old days for you and the ancient old days for me. Who took you to baseball for the first time, Ian? Who introduced you?
My father introduced me to baseball right from birth. By the time I was 3 years old, I knew what was going. I had known Fritz Peterson, Mel Stoudemire, Greg Nettles, Thurman Munson, and Roy White. So I was 3 years old, and those were the 5 players who I followed completely. And
I thought I had a lock on intellectualizing at a young age. When I was 4, my grandfather taught me the New York Giants. So it can be learned at an early age. Who taught your dad? How did your dad come to it?
My father learned it on the streets of Brooklyn. You see, my grandfather was from Russia, and so he really wasn't a very big baseball player. He was born in 1892, and so for him, it was always soccer or hockey. So my father learned it on the streets of Brooklyn, and he was not a Dodger fan, and he wasn't a Giants fan. He was a Yankees fan. He was born in 44, my father, and he got his love for baseball, just like anyone else on the streets of New York if you weren't introduced by your parents. You had fist fights. Who was better in center field, Mantle, Snyder, or Mays? And that's what that's what dominated him.
Just 2 years older than me. So I'm right in there, and I learned to see how the generations of baseball fans transcended. And who are you passing it on to? Are you a kid? You have twin boys. Are they interested?
One of them is interested in baseball. The other one, believe it or not, prefers international sports like soccer and track and Olympic games. The other one loves football as number one sport, then basketball, then. I think when you mentioned transcending, Ralph,
yes.
baseball is transcending downward, because my kids were born at a time in 2007 where in the last 7 years, the game has changed completely. You can't block the plate. You can't, there's a ghost runner on second in extra innings. You can't have a pitcher come in unless he throws to 3 batters. Now there's going to be a pitch clock. Now they time how many pitches you throw, how many innings you have. There's no more bunting. There's no more, everyone's doing their shift because you're going to swing at it. Why would you swing when you can bunt? The game has gone away from being more strategic to being soft on strategy.
Okay. No more hit and runs, no more hit to the opposite field to get the runner in. Do you remember the expression? I'm sure you do. Get him on, get him over, get him in.
Yeah, I think Mickey Rivers.
Right. We don't have that anymore.
Rod Carew. You had Lenny Dykstra. You had people, Mookie Wilson. You had great players who could bunt and maybe even beat out a bunt.
Right. Going back to Mickey Mantle, he bunted very successfully. Terrific drag bunter. So what can I tell you? It's what do you like about today's game? And I'll tell you what I like first is the exceptional athleticism that we see brought in oftentimes from Latin American countries, countries that where the kids grow up in poverty and they have to work to become great, whereas here it's a different attitude. It's like, and what illustrates that, 13% of the ball players today in the major leagues are African Americans. And I have a hard time getting used to the fact how that so much talent has not come baseball's way. And perhaps you can shed some light on the reason that's happened.
Well, this is what's going on, okay? First of all, all the pioneers, whether it was Larry Doby or Jackie Robinson, Billy Mays, or Monty Irvin, or Satchel Paige, you got to remember something. These players were forbidden, I'm going to stress forbidden, for 9 decades. There was a collusion amongst the owners not to integrate the league. And when they got it, the National League, more so than the American League, opened up their teams to Negro League players, and the National League became a lot more superior than the American League, even though the Yankees were winning all those championships. The tide had shifted in the early 60s with, players like Lou Brock or Juan Marichal, and you had Bob Gibson. You had the second generation who fed off the first generation of minorities.
The Frank Robinsons is an example.
Right. Frank Robinson. Now, it's very interesting. All these players, would be disappointed. I know Juan Marichal is still alive. I know, but Frank Robinson died a few years ago. Jackie's been dead now 50 years.
Yeah,
they would be
we're losing some people at an incredible rate. Bill Russell, getting away from baseball to basketball for just one quick second, passed away this past weekend, and I'm a big Facebook guy, and there's 1,000 sports sites on Facebook, and I have never seen such unanimous. Bill Russell was the greatest sports hero we've had, pure and simple. Not just basketball, life, the way he lived life. Tremendous loss for all of us. He was 88, and so take solace in that. He had a long, wonderful life. But wow, missing him started early Sunday morning.
And Ralph, I live up in Massachusetts, and we all know Bill Russell played for the Celtics. And what people don't know, or they tend to forget, is 2 things about Bill Russell. Number one, he knew what it was like to be in a segregated society. They were telling stories yesterday on Boston radio. When he would travel with the team, there would be places that wouldn't serve him. And the Boston Celtics got together and said, well, if you're not going to serve Will, we're not going to play the game. We're going to forfeit the game. They stood behind Russell. Now, we know Russell won 11 championships. That'll probably never be done again, no matter. You could praise Michael, you could praise LeBron, but Wilt Chamberlain was on the cutting edge of influencing society as part of the civil rights movement. And even though, this is a big thing that a lot of people don't know, Ralph, even though he was praised on the courts in Boston, when the team was on the road, his house would always be broken in, and there was one instance where they would pee and defecate in his bed.
Absolutely. Boston fans treated him like the worst venom, and he was winning championships.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy world. Let me put it to you that way.
I'll tell you one more thing. Ralphie. Bob Cousy is still alive. He's 94 years old. He lives about 45 minutes away from me in Worcester. He came out about 2 years ago when a new book was published about him and Wilt. And he said, look, I could have done more for Wilt. I'm sorry I didn't. Cousy was off the team in 1963. Civil Rights Act came a year later. But Cousy felt bad that he could not step up more so. He did a lot for standing with Wilt, but unlike he was the first big representative, he formed the NBA Players Association. He was the first one to do that. He felt he could have done more for black players. You know, even though...
Listen, we all have, look back and have regrets. I'll take the word of David Hirsch, my friend, who said, you do the best you can and live with the results. And that'll have to do. What do you hope for the future of baseball?
You know what? It's very interesting, Ralph. You know, people always ask me who I root for. And you know what I tell them? I tell them I root for the Union, because I'm a Union guy. Okay? Marvin Miller is my hero. Okay? And a lot of people are like, well, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be paying these prices to go to the ballpark, and, you know, the athletes wouldn't be getting paid what they wanted, you know, what they're being paid. Is Trout worth $5?
He is. Did you cut out? Okay. Think we lost you there. Hey, we're back. A little technical difficulty. Ian heard me, and I didn't hear him. Ian.
I am here.
All right. Continue. You were talking about what you hope for baseball in the future.
So like I told you, Ralph, look, I'm a Union guy, okay? Everyone's complaining about prices. Everyone's complaining about this. But you know what? It's the owners who have to pay the players. And going back to the difference, and this is how I tie it in, and I thought about this before I came on to your show. Ralph Tycho, at 12 years old, saw baseball where there was still a reserve clause. No one was getting paid more than $100,000 a year, okay? Because the owners could do and say, and they owned the players like a plantation of slaves, okay? Marvin Miller came in. 10 years later, we have free agency. So I grew up where, wow, we're getting Reggie Jackson. I was 6 years old. I first went to the ballpark, a brand new Yankee Stadium in 1976. By fall, Reggie's coming to New York. Why? Because free agency took over. Now the problem is that, look, you got players who want to be paid market value. If you're working a job and you only get a 3% raise, you're going to grumble and you're going to go to another job. Here, the players were under the owner's thumb in your time as a 12-year-old. They could not move. So every year you expected the same team to come back. Now, players can go anywhere they want. Problem is, the owners continue to pay them exorbitant amounts of money. The only problem I have...
They're taking in exorbitant amounts of money from television, for instance.
Mm-hmm. They are, Ralph, but you know what they're doing? You know who suffers? The fans, because the owners do not need to rip off their fans. Okay? What I would like to see is that prices, and it probably won't, what I'd like to see is that prices stagnate so that people who are working class people can go see the games rather than just watch it on TV. I'd also like to see a final product of what the heck is going on. Have you even studied the new playoff format coming up? I studied it 5 times and I still couldn't explain it to you.
It's like the old NBA. Everybody gets in.
which is crazy because,
Yeah.
you know, I spoke to a lot of old players like Fritz Peterson. The Yankees finished second to the Orioles or the A's in the 70s. Today they would be in the playoffs. I want the rules to remain stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see a ghost runner on second. I want to see baseball. You know, in your time, you had to win the National League and the American League. Purists don't even go past 1968. They said, look, after that, baseball's changed. You had two divisions. But I grew up in two divisions. Now we have a wild card. Then we have a one game. Now it's out of control. I also want to see, getting back to what you said, I want to see baseball back in the inner cities being taught to those who are growing up in hard times like you have internationally. Well, look, they know if I have a talent, I can get out of the ghetto. I can be like someone from the Dominican who grew up poor, took a stick and a coconut and started hitting around and make the major leagues. That's what I want to see. American baseball becoming, you know, more ingrained in the cultural society today.
Well, I think it will change for the better once some rules are implemented to speed up the game. And apparently they're doing very well in the minor leagues with the experiment of it. Stay on the mound, stay in the batter's spots, this, that, and the other thing. It makes the game more lively. Also, I think that kids need to develop future fans. Kids need to be exposed to it in prime time rather than, or earlier, daytime, rather than all-night games, and even the All-Star game, kids aren't exposed to. So baseball has a lot of cleaning up to do.
They always did, Ralph. The problem is, I love your theory on baseball becoming more acclimated to younger kids. The problem is that the All-Star game is a money winner, so they'll put it at 8:15 Eastern time so that they can get all the sponsors and all the money. And games are at prime time, and the World Series is at prime time because that's when the sponsors are going to pay for the ages of, say, 18 to 49. You know,
and they
games.
Will make a lot of money doing it in the short run. But in the long run, 30 years from now, who's going to be the fanatical fan that goes out there with their kid?
No one. No one.
So, exactly. And if you don't have that bubblegum card type mentality as a kid, you won't stick with it to your lifetime. And I'll tell you what, I see gloom and doom unless they make changes. And I am open to them seeing the future a little bit and saying, hey, we're making a lot of money now, but we're not going to, our grandkids won't get much of it because antitrust laws will have been violated and franchises will be lost, and we're really screwing it up, should say baseball. And what can we do about it to change things, should say baseball?
Well, you know what? That's going to have to be on the commissioner and the owners. And until they stop saying, just like the oil barons, you know, when is it enough money? You know, could we incur a 50% cut in our profits? Of course they could. No one's going to go bankrupt. That's when it's going to happen. When greed no longer rules the decisions of baseball, you'll see a change. But you're not going to see a change.
You mentioned the word transcend. that transcends to life itself, society itself. Greed is screwing us up in a myriad of different ways. So, hey, I love beating it around the bush with you, my friend. Ian Kahanowitz, Renaissance Man. How about that if I call you that?
Yeah, I've been called everything to, Bob Dylan, Uncle Fester, and Mr. Bojangles. So, hey, Renaissance Man is good for me.
Good. Renaissance Man, come back to see us real soon on Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Loving baseball when we were 12 and innocent. We're not that innocent anymore, are we?
No, we've been so shattered by life's obstacles it's thrown at us. That's it, by life. Whatever it's thrown at us. Hey, but you know what, Ralph? You're more of a purist than I am, so that's good.
I don't think there's a right or wrong. People are what they are.
You're a good doobie, You're a good doobie, Ralphie.
Thank you, my friend. I love you.
Love you too, Ralphie. All right. God bless. Take care.
Well, let him work on better things than Ralphie. Let her take over for a while. Let her take over for a while and bless me. If there's going to be a God, let it be a woman.
Hey, why not?
It has to be some old smelly man with a beard like me. Okay.
Yeah, all right, Ralphie. We'll speak to you, buddy.
Be good. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm the weak link of it all. Ralph Tycho. Adios.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.